Hello. So, um, what I did was I wanted to see the effects of most least prompting on the frequency of Mands in neurotypical children. And so, my reasoning for wanting to increase or try to increase the frequency of Mands in neurotypical children is that the more someone is capable of manding, the overall better their quality of life is going to be. They're able to interact with people more and they're able to get their needs met more often. They're able to express their wants. I'm specifically looking at Mands for cessation in this study that I did. So really the goal will be to increase their ability to say, hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want that. Um, to make sure that they are able to engage with their peers in an appropriate manner and express when they're in discomfort. Um, my research question is, will most of these prompting increase the frequency of Manding cessation in neurotypical children? Um, my participants included three neurotypical females. They were two of them were ages of 5, and the other one was the age of 6. And this occurred in the living room of the participants. Um, note that all three participants are siblings. Um, so I believe this is socially valid because improving a child or anyone's quality of life is always going to be beneficial for them and the people around them, right? If they're happier, they're typically going to interact with more people, and everyone's interactions will be better. So, obviously, their life will improve if they're able to man more, and then the people around them will also have better interactions with them, right? Like if a kid can man more, then parents don't have to play guessing games on what the kid wants. Um, from what I found from my research done during a literature review was that it looks like a lot of research is done on this already when it comes to like the effectiveness of prompting on increasing mans, or just the effectiveness of different kinds of prompts on increasing manding or just desired behavior in general. However, there does tend to seem to be a gap in like research done on neurotypical children, especially just in our field in general. I feel like you'll see a lot of research done on people with ASD or with like ADHD or Down syndrome, but you often don't see the same kind of studies done on people who are neurotypical. Um, so how I went about doing this was I did a multiple baseline across participants design, and I chose this because if the prompting is effective, I don't want to remove it and then do it again to show that it's replicable and that it works because, then that could lead to a decrease in manding and that could mean the kid wasn't getting their needs met. That's unethical. So to get around that, I did uh, participant multiple baseline across participant. This way that I can show that, hey, it occurred with this kid, and then it occurred with this kid, and then it occurred with this kid, so that the results are replicable and it shows a functional relationship. The independent variable is most least prompting, um, and then the dependent variable is going to be the frequency of manding per cessation. I calculated this by during my observation periods, I would tally every time a mand per cessation occurred. And so what my study looked like is during baseline, I would have the kids sitting on the couch watching TV, and then I would have an adult, and the adult was the same adult throughout the entire study, present a instructional worksheet with vocal instructions every 3 minutes for a 30-minute period. Um, so that would occur, there'd be 10 opportunities per observation, and then during baseline, I had no prompting occurring. If the child manded for cessation, the adult would step away. If they didn't respond, the adult would step away within 5 seconds. And if they started to have some form of outburst behavior like screaming, kicking, yelling, etc., the adult would also step away. Then once I had stable baseline, which you can see here, I started to implement intervention with the first participant, which looked like um, after the adult had been educated on how the prompting hierarchy would work, which it was a set of prompts, and then every time to correct, every time the kid responded with a mand with a prompt 2 times in a row, we would fade to the next prompt in the hierarchy. And then I would observe and mark every time the kid manded, and I would mark down what prompt was used. Um, I was only scoring independent, no non-prompted mands for cessation on the graphs. So where you see over here where it's say like 5 or 4, these are independent mands. The prompted mands were counted as incorrect. And then if the adult got an independent mand for cessation or a prompted mand for cessation, they would step away. During intervention phase, if the participant had an outburst, um, the adult was instructed to prompt again. Um, and if they prompted twice without getting a mand, they would go up in the prompting hierarchy unless they were already at the top, and then which they would just stay there. And then if they got no response, they would wait 5 seconds, and then they would prompt again if need be. Okay. Um, so my results. During baseline, manding did not exceed 3 occurrences during any of the observations. So that means in 30 minutes, the kids only manded for cessation uh, 3 times independently or less. I think there was only one instance of it being 3. Most of the time, it was 0 to like 2. Um, and then once intervention took place, on average, between the 3 participants, it took about 5.3 observations for them to reach the maximum amount of times that manding for cessation could independently occur in the 30-minute observation, which was 10. And then with each participant, once they did reach the maximum amount of independent manding for cessation, there was no regression. I continued into a maintenance phase and still saw no regression. So once they figured out, hey, I can just say no and the instructional sheet and the instructions will go away, they just kept saying no and they stopped having outbursts and they stopped not responding. So, and because this occurred across all 3 participants, um, it can be assumed that there is a functional relation between the prompting and an increase in manding. Due to the fact that most least prompting led to an increase in frequency of manding for cessation, I believe that this can be paired with more research done on neurotypical individuals to show that ABA strategies are effective in the neurotypical population as well. And I feel that continuing this kind of research is important because I have worked within schools in the past in general education classrooms. I was assigned to an individual with ASD. However, I would notice that a lot of these teachers that were interacting with these individuals with ASD, in the general education classrooms, also had kids who were neurotypical, and they were still struggling to manage the neurotypical children's behaviors. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost in our field is like, it's not just for individuals with ASD or some type of developmental delay. It can also be used really on anyone because it's just a study of behavior. And so I feel like studies like this are important to show that it doesn't just have to be used on individuals with ASD, it can be used on individuals, on any individual. And so that, for instance, like most least prompting could then be more mainstream. It could start to, generalize to more settings outside of just ABA sessions. And I think in general society would benefit from this, especially, post COVID, we are seeing a lot of kids come into classrooms with lower skills than they would in the past due to, online schooling not being as effective. So, um, now, something I would note about my study was that all the participants were siblings. They live together. They interact with each other on a regular basis. Um, if you look at my data, the graphs, you'll notice that the third participant, um, progressed a lot faster than the first two. I suspect that this may be to them interacting and potentially talking about what was going on. And they may have informed the third participant on like how to act. I'm not really sure. Um, but I do believe this could have impacted the data. And so if I were to redo this study, I would probably pick participants who aren't living together. And if I were to want to kind of build on this study, I would probably, what I would do would be to develop different prompting hierarchies and like compare like the efficiency of each prompting hierarchy and see like which one was causing participants to reach higher levels of frequencies of manding faster to kind of develop like a strategy on like, okay, what's the most effective way to do most least prompting? Like, is this prompt needed? Like, can we skip this prompt and so on? Thank you.